North to south, coast to coast, and especially today, around the world. This is the Wells Report. What do? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point that out. In short, we depropagandize the mainstream media. We make commentary, which is not news. Commentary is simply your opinion, my opinion, and so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. War broke out over the weekend. Hamas attacked Israel. It was a surprise attack. It was, by all accounts, except from accounts from the United States State Department, it was planned and signed off on by the terror state of Iran. And that had something to do with an awful lot of this. And whenever things like this happen, we go to a brilliant warrior. He's a colonel of the United States Army. He is retired. He is John Antal. He's been on this broadcast for almost 10 years now, and he joins us. Sir, welcome to the broadcast. Good to have you here.
John David, it's good to hear from you. And again, this is trying times and difficult times, but I'm glad I have an opportunity to share some thoughts with you.
Well, you are the author of a brand new book called Next War, Reimagining How We Fight. And it looks like you have come up with, once again, a book before the actual need. And you do that an awful lot. I just want to bring that up. That's a personal observation of mine. But what we are seeing in Hamas and Israel may just be a precursor to what you talk about in that book. Share a little bit of information about it with us.
Right, I will. Thank you very much. The nature of war is changing dramatically. And in the last 3 years, there have been several wars that we need to study that most people are not paying attention to. And unfortunately, many in our military don't study in depth. They don't know much about it. They're inch deep on it. I started writing a book a few years ago in 2020, right after the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War happened, which was between Azerbaijan and Armenia in the Caucasus. Okay, so Azerbaijan attacked Armenian forces in Nagorno-Karabakh. They won a 44-day decisive victory, and it was the first war in history won primarily with robotic systems. So you would think everyone would pay attention, but because in 2020 we were wrapped up in COVID and internal problems, nobody really paid attention. But people in the military and government and leaders need to. So that's the first war, the one in 2020. And I wrote a book about it that came out in 2022, in February 2022, just before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So the book, 7 Seconds to Die, was all about trying to get our leaders prepared for the changing methods of war, the use of drones, the use of all these other systems. And it's not just technology, it's also how these are all being put together. So there are 9 disruptors that I talk about. The transparent battle space, meaning that everything can be seen now from systems that are in space all the way down to systems on the ground, including all the ones that fly. And they can see everything in the battle space, and that changes war dramatically because you can't hide anymore. There are no sanctuaries. And the next is the first strike advantage. The first strike advantage is critical now in a transparent battle space and with precision weapons. You can now see everything and kill everything that you can range. And missiles now, as you know, can range almost everywhere. In Ukraine, there is no safe place. In Israel, there is no safe place. There are no sanctuaries. Yes. And then I go into other disruptors. But what you saw this weekend was Hamas, who is a proxy army of Iran, supported, trained, and planned probably by Iran, of course certainly planned by Iran, attacked Israel in a first strike that was very effective. They launched 3,000 plus missiles, some say as high as 7,000, to overwhelm the Israeli rocket defenses called the Iron Dome, their air defense system. And while they were doing that, and the Israelis were preoccupied with all these missiles coming in and rockets and mortars, then they launched their attack at 6:30 in the morning across the fence line and broke through the fence line, and all of these light infantry terrorists ran amok in Israel, taking over towns and killing people. And of course, this is now a major war. Israel is at war with Hamas. And on the northern border of Israel, we have another proxy army by Iran called Hezbollah. And they have been firing mortars at Israel, but they haven't gone full out to attack. And if they do, Israel will now be in a two-front war, both against Hamas and against Hezbollah. And of course, Iran is fueling, funding, and supporting all this. So major changes are happening in the Middle East. We all need to pay attention.
Well, this
And
could get out of hand. Yeah. This could get out of hand in a big hurry.
yeah.
I wanted to bring this up to you as this came out in 1962. The president of the United States at the time, John F. Kennedy, issued what became the Kennedy Doctrine, which was that nuclear weapons launched from the island of Cuba, if they should strike the United States, they would be treated as a nuclear attack from the Soviet Union upon the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response. Should Benjamin Netanyahu declare something along that line and say that Hamas attacks, Hezbollah attacks, as is well known, they are proxy armies of Iran, should they indeed take this Kennedy-esque idea and say that any attacks from those organizations would be treated as an attack from Iran onto the state of Israel?
Well, that's a very good question, and I think that the Israelis are contemplating many options like that. You know, in order to deter war, the enemy has to believe that any action by you, if they were to attack, would be so overwhelming and so devastating that their ability to attack you would gain them nothing, so therefore they won't do it. You deter them from attacking. You know, it's like a big bully who comes at you, but if you have a baseball bat in your hand, you can be small and you can still crack his skull, and maybe that bully won't come at you, and that's the point. Now, Israel believed they had deterrence up to this point, and they believed also that their intelligence services were excellent and they would know ahead of time and be able to act. They fought a war in 2021 against Hamas, and they won brilliantly in 11 days. In 11 days, and that was the first war in history primarily won by artificial intelligence. It's an amazing campaign, but none of that is happening now. Everything has changed in this attack, and it's amazing how from 2021 to now 2023, we have this big difference. And partially it was because the Israelis were consumed by internal problems, but also there was a huge intelligence failure by not just Israel, but also by the United States and the European security agencies, because we all kind of work together, you know, sharing information. And if there was a major attack understood to be planned by Iran, ready to go, and the United States knew about it, we would have told Israel. So we were asleep at the wheel, they were asleep at the wheel, and they're paying a huge price for it now. These kind of black swans happen a little too frequently. It happened to us on 9/11. We're still asking the question, how could we have been fooled? How could that have happened? How come we didn't know? And we never really answered that question. You know, and so the Israelis are going through the same thing. This is their 9/11 moment, and they're feeling, you know, the same kind of dread and horrible churning in their stomachs that we felt, for those of you that were alive and remember, you know, on 9/11. And they're losing right now upwards to 1,300 Israeli soldiers and civilians in this fight. So this is a horrific death toll for them. And they're going to wage a major war against Hamas, which could easily, as you said, could easily explode into a larger war in the Middle East involving Hezbollah, involving Iran. Who knows from there? And this is all benefiting, of course, Russia and China, who are our primary, you know, competitors, and we have to look at them as potential enemies, because these guys keep saying they're at war with us. The Russians say they're at war with us, and they know that we are fighting, you know, with Ukraine against them. We don't have forces on the ground, but we're supplying the Ukrainians with almost everything they need. And the Chinese, of course, have said they're going to attack Taiwan, and if we're in their way, they're going to attack us. So these are very dangerous times.
Well, what I'm trying to figure out is, you know, what's keeping, and we've discussed this before on this very broadcast, what is keeping China from attacking Taiwan right now? This is a wonderful opportunity for misdirection, et cetera, et cetera. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about the idea that suddenly there could be many theaters of war opening up all over the world requiring a United States response. In other words, like you were talking about these thousands of rockets overwhelming Iron Dome, would there be at least tens of theaters of war opening up to overwhelm United States defenses? Colonel John Antal is our guest. He is a retired Army colonel. He is brilliant. He is working with the United States military to avoid something that is common in warfare, not just from the United States, but human. That is fighting your grandfather's war. The idea that warfare has completely changed is chronicled in a book called Next War, Imagining How We Fight. And you do not have to be some military devotee to read this book. This is something you need to be aware of. The war that he referenced earlier involving Azerbaijan, I got to see that presentation that he did. It was eye-watering that you see things normally that have U.S. name tags on them, but these were people that were far outside the United States purvey using these weapons of incredible precision and capability. And you need to know about this. This is something you do need to know. Colonel, you know me, I'm a tactical guy. You're a strategic guy. Let's talk a little bit about those. Didn't look like Katyusha rockets to me. They were on very precise flight paths. Is this one way to perhaps put Iranian fingerprints on this? Because they look more sophisticated than what we've seen in the past.
Right. There's really no forensics that need to be done. We know that Iran supplies them. It's clear they've been smuggling rockets to Hamas, for years. Hezbollah has what they claim to be over 100,000 rockets. So if they decide to attack Israel, and those were all from Iran, if they decide to attack Israel, they can launch those all almost simultaneously. Imagine that kind of an onslaught. That kind of a first strike by an enemy force gives them a potentially great advantage. So imagine Pearl Harbor. The Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in World War II on December 7th, 1941, as your listeners know. And they launched a devastating attack all the way from Japan with aircraft carriers. And had they gone through their second and third and fourth waves, if they had kept at it, they could have absolutely destroyed everything at Pearl Harbor, including the docks, the fuels, everything else. And World War II would be very different. So everyone who now has these precision weaponry and the ability to use satellites and unmanned air systems and even balloons to be able to see the ground precisely and then help direct those weapons now has the ability to do a devastating Pearl Harbor whenever they want. And that's what Hamas did. They were able to use that first strike to gain a tremendous advantage. And some people say, well, I don't understand why Hamas, what's Hamas's next move? What are they trying to do? How are they going to be able to defeat Israel? How are they going to be able to hold the ground? And of course, the answer is they're not. They're a terrorist organization. They achieved their goal already. They had strategic surprise against Israel. Israel has taken thousands of casualties. They have invaded Israel. For them, this is the greatest propaganda information war victory they could ever have.
Yeah, indeed. And not only that, it is being called by Benjamin Netanyahu and others in Israel as their 9/11. We are speaking with Colonel John Antal, U.S. Army retired. He is a brilliant author. He does presentations around the country talking about the new era of warfare that we currently are a part of and involved in, whether we know it or not. And indeed, things are getting a little out of hand here and could get out of hand even worse. In 1973, there was something called the Yom Kippur War. Almost to the day 50 years ago, we now see something very similar going on with Israel. That 1973 war took us very close to an armed conflict that could have been World War III. Is that where we are now? No hyperbole here, just fact. This is the Wells Report. Back in a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. His name is Colonel John Antal. You can find him at johnantal.com. That's JOHNANTAL.com. I'm going to show you that right now. johnantal.com. You should go there. He will teach you about leadership. He will teach you about warfare. You can scroll down and you can see more about this incredibly great man who has, without doubt, made awareness, as it says on the website here, made awareness for not just the United States military and militaries around the world, but ourselves as well. So let's talk a little bit about this, a little bit more about this, Colonel. You talked about the idea that indeed, you know, this could be one of those conflicts that could go wider very quickly, and you just gave me an analysis that essentially puts us back in 1941 before the Pearl Harbor bombing. Go through that with us, would you please?
Yeah, a year ago, the British chief of staff of the British Army, a new general, took charge, and he said, "This is our 1937 moment, looking at what happened in Ukraine." And what he meant by that was, we only have a few years left before 1939, when the World War II started. So the British decided they need to go. The British Army decided they need to go on an urgent mission to get ready. Well, that was a clarion call from his pulpit. I think right now that everything has accelerated. I think we're really in a 1941 moment now. And you think about it from the United States of America's perspective. You know, back in World War II, for those of you that are historians and understand what happened, there was a war raging in Europe and a war raging in Asia, while we didn't do anything because we weren't ready to fight and we wanted to stay out of it. And that started in 1939 and it went on into 1940 and 1941. And in the summer of 1941, we were all just happy thinking we're going to stay out of this thing. And December 7th, 1941 came with the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, and we were thrust into World War II. Now, things can happen very quickly. We hope and pray that our deterrence is such that in this day and age, people will hesitate and not be willing to attack us or our allies. But you can see already, with a major war operating in Europe, a major war now happening in the Middle East, confusion on our southern border, the Chinese saying they're going to invade Taiwan, North Korea saber rattling all the time and now making arms deals with Russia in a way they've never had before. The entire world is in turmoil here, and there's a lot of dictators that want to do bad to us. And they're going to do everything they can to disrupt us and cause problems. And Russia, of course, is very gleeful at what's going on in the Middle East. And although they are busy with the war in Ukraine, they will offer their support to Iran to make this happen. So the Iranian, North Korean, Russia, China axis is a real thing. So we see ourselves, right now as having a peaceful situation in the United States, getting ready for an election in 2024. What could go wrong? I mean, there's so many things that can happen between now and then that we all need to prepare for mentally. And we also need to start getting our elected representatives and others to think strongly about this. I've worked with folks on the Senate Armed Services Committee to brief them about the changing methods of war. In fact, the forward to my book, Next War, which just came out on September 28th of this year, a few weeks ago, is written by Senator Mike Rounds, who is on the Senate Armed Services Committee. And that forward was written by him because he realizes how important it is to get the thinking changed. You have to change your thinking first before you can do anything else. And our problem right now is that leadership matters, and we have a lack of leadership across many spectrums.
Sir, it is a privilege to have you. It always has been and always will be. Unfortunately, I think we're going to be tapping on your front door a little bit more because this doesn't look like it's going anywhere soon. And if indeed Iran takes a look at that great big aircraft carrier out in the Med and says, hey, you know what? We've got a rocket that might reach that. This could get out of hand in a big hurry.
That's correct.
All right, sir. God bless you and yours. And please accept my most sincere thanks for taking this interview. You had about, I think it was like 4 or 5 minutes notice, I think. Something like that.
John David, anytime, and thank you for all your listeners. I'm long on America. We'll get through this. God bless you all. Take care.
God bless you, sir, and I appreciate it. John Antal joining us. Don't forget, Next War is the next book, and you need to read it. Back with more in just a moment.